what's the biggest misconception people have about professional athletes' lifestyles and incomes?
I think that people have such a misconception, especially about track and field athletes. And the biggest one might be, I really had to start from the bottom. Same with in academics, right? I just remember feeling like I was already behind.
How much do you think you and your family have overall spent to get you in this sport?
Yeah, for me personally,
What's up, rich friends? Welcome back to another episode of Networth and Chill with me, your host, Vivian Tu, aka your rich BFF and your favorite Wall Street girly. Like the rest of America, there's nothing I like more than sitting on my ass and watching the best athletes in the world fight for gold. And by that, I mean I am talking both the summer and the winter Olympics. I'm glued to my TV screen. I'm eating chips off of my chest, complaining about how this person couldn't flip 18 times in the air. But because I'm me, I'm always wondering, how much do people actually win for winning a gold medal? And how much does it cost to just get an athlete to the Olympics, period? So to help answer my questions today, I've got a 3-time Olympic gold medalist joining us. And trust me, she's the definition of unstoppable. Not only is she the third fastest woman in history in the 200-meter dash, but she's also a Harvard grad. Okay, smarty. We're talking athletics, academics, and of course, the money moves behind professional sports. Everyone, please welcome Gabby Thomas.
yay, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Gabby, I'm so excited to have you here with me today. But before we get started, I want to know, what's the biggest misconception people have about professional athletes' lifestyles and incomes?
I mean, that's probably my favorite question. I think that people have such a misconception, especially about track and field athletes. And the biggest one might be that our training situation, right? So I think people have this idea in their head that we train at these really elite kind of Olympic training centers and that we
Like
have
a coliseum.
You're right, like a coliseum. Anything, honestly, not even that, like just simple facilities and resources that they think maybe are governing bodies giving to us, for example. But no, I think in our sport specifically, you're lucky if you are training like on a college campus. Like if you're a professional runner and you can stay at your college campus, you're already like miles ahead, no pun intended, of like your other competitors.
Yeah.
So a lot of us don't have that. So me, for example, I went to Harvard, and when I decided that I wanted to run and be an Olympian and try to, go for that dream, I moved to Texas. And we don't train at any type of Olympic training center. We actually train at a public park, sometimes at a local high school. And we do our weight training at a warehouse that is not temperature controlled, or it's like a small warehouse that is enough for my group, which is about 10 girls to train in. And then you're kind of on your own when you're looking for physio, nutritionist, sports, all of that. You kind of have to do that and outsource it like yourself. And if you can get away with training on your college campus, like let's say you're a great collegiate athlete, you graduate, and maybe you're at Florida, for example. We have a lot of Olympians at Florida. You can stay on Florida's campus and use all of those resources, right? You can use their track, and then you have a private track where, the public isn't going to come bother you.
I was going to ask, when you're running, do people just
No, absolutely. And as they should. I mean, they use the track, they pay taxes, like they can use it. A lot of times people will stop me for photos, or they're just walking, trying to get a workout in, and they're kind of like in our lanes. And it kind of, it is what it is. Or if it's a crowded time, if the weather's nice, like you're just kind of navigating that. So I think people really do think that we have this really nice setup, but a lot of times when people come visit me or when I do shoots, at my local track, they're kind of like, oh,
humble.
Very humble beginnings. But I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, and you can make it using the bare minimum, right? We just, all you need is a pair of spikes and a track. So I think that might be the biggest misconception. There are some athletes who do use training centers, right? And there are some that have their college resources, which is incredible. But I know for myself and my group and for a lot of professionals, making that transition is actually very difficult. Making the transition from college to professional is difficult because you are on your own in that regard.
Have you ever felt any type of way about the athletes that can personally afford or have the wealth to be like, oh, and this is my cryo chamber, and this is my track, and this is my blah, 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 and then you're in a warehouse lifting weights?
I do think about that, and I do want to say the way I trained in my setup, it was a choice. Like when I graduated from Harvard, I toured different areas and I wanted to see what would be the best fit for me. And I saw how they trained. And they were successful regardless, right? I mean, it's all about the coach and the team that you kind of create. So I knew that if I wanted to move to Austin, Texas, I would have to curate a team for myself and make it work. And I think one of my favorite quotes is from an Olympic swim coach, Coach Bauman, and he said, don't worry so much about making the right decision. Just make sure the decision, you make it right. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to move to Austin, Texas. I love the coach. I love what these girls are doing. And we don't have the facilities, but we're going to make this work. Yeah. We're going to make it happen. And we did, obviously, right? We made it happen. But I definitely do feel a way. I mean, people have advantages. Yeah. When you have...
Do you think that's unfair?
I do think it's a little unfair.
Yeah.
But like I said, you make it work with what you have. And track is a sport where you can do that. Would I love to have like University of Texas's weight room facilities?
You can't
and
just like DM
access?
them and be like, "Yo, can I come over?"
I wish I could. I wish it worked that way. But they have a group there, and they're trying to beat me, right?
Okay,
a girl like Julian Alfred. She won the 100. She trains in Austin too. She trains at UT. Yeah, because she went to school there, and so and she's running my event, trying to beat me. It's not like, oh, hey, come join us, come train here, use all my resources and facilities, right? It's not that simple. But I wouldn't say I'm jealous of it. I would just say I'm cognizant. And if it means that I have to be a little bit more intentional about, where I'm training, what I'm doing, and how I'm spending my money, then so be it.
And speaking of like the financial investment for all of these resources and this training, like how much do you think you and your family have overall spent to like get you in this sport? Yeah,
I think I actually was talking to my mom about this the other day, which is really funny. For me personally, not much at all. I grew up doing all types of sports, but it was never something where my mom was like, okay, we're going to invest a ton of money. We're going to do these camps to get private coaching. We never did any of that. And track and field specifically is actually one of those sports where you really don't have to pay to play. It's like, get a pair of running shoes. They don't even have to be nice. I didn't have new running shoes every season, and get out there and run. And I think that's what's so great about track and field is that there's such a low barrier to entry. Everyone out there probably does come from humble beginnings. And my mom, when I got into sports, I mean, we were broke back then, right? She was just a single mom trying to make it work. She was in education. And so we didn't really have money to throw around and invest in sports. And I remember people would recommend it in high school. I remember people would say, oh, you should go do this camp. Go do this track camp if you want to get recruited by colleges. My mom was like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to. Like, they'll see you. Yeah. Or they have these high school meets a lot. Like New Balance Nationals is one. And I'll never forget, like, asking my mom, oh, we should go. This coach said we should go to this meet. And the way she looked at me, like I had 3 eyeballs or something, because the meet was in North Carolina. We were living in Massachusetts at the time. And it just felt so unnecessary. But track and field is full of that, right? People who just didn't really have the means to do a bunch of different things or invest in sports like that, but everyone is super hungry. Like everyone, going back to that theme of making it work, you make it work. People have a pair of spikes and they have a drive, and you do it. And then you can earn a scholarship, you can earn a place in college, at university, and then if you work hard there, you can be a pro athlete. But you really don't need that much. So I would say the most my mom spent on, my investment in track and field would be maybe, $0, but sports in general, maybe $1,000. Yeah. Maybe $2,000 just with registration fees for of course. Soccer that I did, basketball.
You got to get the shoes at
right,
least.
You got to get the shoes, all of that. But everything was free in season. In school, at my high school club. Now, at the professional level, it was a completely different game. Yeah. So when I signed a professional contract after college, that takes money and investment, right? And thankfully, I had sponsors by the time I graduated, which we can get into that because that is a whole other side of the sport. But that definitely was. You have to pay a coach. You have to pay an agent. You have to pay for your travel to meets. You have to you pay for a massage therapist, access to a weightlifting facility if you don't have that. All of that you have to pay for out of pocket. And in track and field, another misconception is there is no salary for us. Once you're a professional runner, there is no like league that you're going into where you get a salary.
Yeah.
In fact, professional runner is not even a real term. Anyone
Yeah.
can kind of say they're a professional runner. You could go for a jog outside and say you're training for the Olympics and call yourself a professional runner, to be honest. You could. And maybe you get some type of influencing deal or marketing deal for doing it, and now you're a professional runner. So there you go.
Strava, please call me.
I mean, literally. So there's that. So for me, I had sponsorships that would help support that endeavor. So New Balance was my first one.
Yeah.
And they helped me get to the Olympics, and they helped me pay for everything. And I would say, I mean, that journey to my first Olympics in Tokyo, I had to invest somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000.
Wow.
Just paying a coach, paying an agent, paying for travel to meets.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's a sizable amount.
That's certainly a sizable amount. Roll back the tape just a little bit. You mentioned, like, you know, growing up, not having a lot of resources. Your mom was a single mom. Was that ever like a sore issue for you when it came to like comparing yourself to other athletes on the field or even just other kids at your school?
I definitely think so. As I look back and reflect on that, there were definitely some insecurities around that. Just watching, I think, other girls in my grade do sports outside of school, for example. So everything I did had to be in season at my high school. And when you see other people like doing multiple teams, like doing club soccer.
Like the travel team.
Yeah, the travel teams and the club basketball, because that was kind of the blueprint to do your sport in college.
Yeah.
And in a way, you're made to seem, and I know because I spoke to my mom about this too, you're kind of made to believe that you have to do that in order to make it in sports. And I think the truth is you just really don't. And I'm glad that my mom did not make me feel like I was doing less than any of the other kids because we couldn't do that. But you know, that still creeps in your head, right? You're thinking, oh, are we doing everything right? Are we doing what we need to do? FOMO, classic FOMO. Right? But for me at the time, I also, I put my focus in academics. Like I poured my focus in that. So if I didn't make it in sports, it was not the end all be all, right? Sports was a fun outlet for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that I stressed about. And that's another benefit, I think, to my journey and got me to where I am now, right? It's not stressing about sports, not worrying about paying for all of these lessons and being the best out there all the time. It was just genuinely something that we had fun doing. But yeah, I mean, those thoughts definitely crept in a little bit. And I was just so grateful to have an offer when I was in high school. And I never saw myself being a collegiate athlete, but that's the way it worked out. And everything, you know, worked out the way it was supposed to. But definitely had those doubts at times, just not, you know, doing everything that the other kids were doing, right?
Of course. So obviously, we go to Harvard. Cool. It's got this, you know, panache. It's really sexy. Were you ever worried, like, going from your local high school, all of a sudden going to a college where it is very known that billionaires' kids go to? These are some of the top athletes in the country, also some of the smartest minds. Like, did you ever feel like you weren't ever going to be smart enough or fast enough? Or, like, did you have any of that imposter syndrome?
I would say, well, yes. In short, yes. When I decided to go to Harvard, I knew that I was going to be putting myself in an environment where I would be challenged and forced to push myself. And to be honest, that is something that I welcomed. I usually thrive in those environments. I am no stranger to being put in uncomfortable situations. I moved schools quite a few times growing up, and always I felt like I was in classes where I had to push myself and I was not the smartest in the room.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't something that I was not going to be used to, right? Not being the smartest girl in the classroom, that's fine. Not being the most athletic person on the field, also fine. And so, but I definitely walked into Harvard having those experiences. I do remember freshman year being incredibly difficult for me just because of that. But
same. I went to public school and I was not prepared for college.
I mean, it's right. It's such a different beast. But I think that's so important is putting yourself in those types of environments where you are not the top, right? Like where you were not the best at everything. That means you're doing something right. It means that you were getting to where you're supposed to be. It means you were going to be better and you're going to be the best version of yourself. So I welcome that. But there were definitely times where I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like I really don't. And like a lot of people that I ran track with at Harvard, I mean, they grew up kind of doing that club track stuff, right? They went to the junior high school championships. They did AAU track. And so I kind
Somebody
of felt
probably
like,
had a track in their backyard.
Right, like exactly. So I'm like, I'm feeling kind of out of the loop here. Like I walked into my first day of warm-ups at Harvard, like doing drills with same arm, same leg. And if you know track and field, that's just insane.
Yeah.
So I really had to start from the bottom. Same with in academics, right? I just remember feeling like I was already behind in some ways academically, but I just had to catch up. And then at the same time, I had to work jobs at Harvard too.
I was just going to ask, how did you pay for school?
They don't, Harvard doesn't do scholarships,
Yeah.
as many people probably know. Ivy League doesn't do athletic scholarships. And so you get financial aid, which is very, generous at the Ivy League and at Harvard, but they are expecting you to do some work to contribute. So I was also managing, classes and then athletics and then my jobs. And so at times I did feel like, oh, this is a bit harder for me than I feel like, it is for a lot of other people, but you make it work. You make it work. And it was a really great time for me. Like I loved my time at Harvard and I loved that I had to go through something like difficult. And I love that because look where it got me. Yeah. Like I feel like there's nothing I cannot do because facts. I did that. Right? Like, and I needed that experience. I needed to grow like that. I needed to prove that I can be in a place where I feel like I might not belong here and then genuinely belong. Yeah. And that's why I moved to Texas too, to be in a situation where I was uncomfortable. I moved to a group full of Olympians. Mm-hmm. And when I graduated from Harvard, I was not Olympian caliber at that point, right? I definitely had the potential, but I was not there. Yeah. So I needed to be in a place where, okay, I feel like I don't really belong here. I'm with Olympians, Olympic medalists, and I had to be there, and I had to push myself and get to their standard to become an Olympian.
Yeah. So I was just looking at your ring. It's beautiful, the Olympic one.
Thank you.
Talk me through this process. How's qualifying for the Olympics and then competing and winning? How do you think that's changed the trajectory of your life, sponsorships, everything else?
Significantly. It's been such a tremendous change in trajectory. And the way I see it, there are really tiers to this. Yeah. You can become kind of this tier where you're a professional athlete, and you get sponsorships and you have some money to support the career that you're trying to have, right? And that was me when I came out of college. Yeah. I had the support of sponsors, and that means I can go run and I can go live my dream of trying to become an Olympian or becoming one. And then, but I had to win. And that the main point of all of this is you have to win. Track and field is a sport where you eat what you kill. Yeah. So if you're not winning races, you're not making money. So I won.
Win as in 1, 2, 3 or just one?
One. Oh, it's one, right? Okay, that's what matters. That's what America cares about. Okay. So when I got it, cool. So when I was in college, I won the NCAA championships. I won that. Yes, thank you. But that's what got me my sponsorship, right? So I had to win that. After that, I tried for the Tokyo Olympic team. Yeah. I won Olympic trials, and I had to win. And my life kind of changed overnight after that meet. Yeah. And this was back in 2021. Yeah. Because suddenly people are like, oh, she might win a gold medal. Like, she's Olympic caliber. Yeah. I won the meet. And that, I got a lot of sponsorships out of that too. So that was really great financially and helped a lot. Fast forward a couple more years to the Paris 2024 Olympics this past summer. When I won the gold medal, everything has changed. I mean, it's about winning, right? Sponsors, partnerships. I mean, my entire life has definitely been altered. And the plan after that, I think, is just to make it so that you can make so much money in such a little amount of time. Yeah. And that's kind of the name of the game in track and sports in general. Yeah. And so this is kind of my period of time to do that.
Yeah, of course.
And I've set myself up well to do that now, but you have to win. Yeah. And that's what it is. And if you're not winning, I'd say the average kind of life and money-making situation for a track and field athlete is you make enough to really support your career as an athlete, but then you retire and you're definitely going to have to figure out how to work and make money
another
after
job.
That. Right. You're going to go back to just working kind of your typical job.
Okay. So in Paris, you won 3 gold medals. Did you get rich? How much did the Olympics pay you for those medals?
Okay, so I get paid for a gold medal in the U.S. You get paid $37,000, $37,500. That's it.
Sorry, like not to like.
That's it.
I don't want to sound insulting, but 37 G's for
Olympic gold.
what could be a lifetime worth of work?
No, absolutely. That's it.
Oh.
And if you do relays, you get to split it. You get to split it
Oh,
amongst
between
all
four.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
so we can each
that.
walk away with $8,000.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
For a lifetime of work.
Exactly. And silver medals, I think you get $23,000, and bronze something like $15,000. So that's how much you're making. And World Athletics. So if you do track and field, actually this year's new. If you win a gold medal, you do get $50,000.
Okay.
And that's from World Athletics.
Okay.
That's our track and field governing body.
Okay.
So very specific to us and very new. So you also get to split that between your relay members if you win it. So that's great. But yeah, that's how much you're making. And
so you did not get rich off of the actual winning itself.
No.
It was that winning gave you a platform.
Yes, exactly. And I always tell people, like, I have a job that is to run, but I have a second job.
Yeah.
And that second job is to essentially be an influencer. It's to run my own brand.
Spokesperson.
Yes, a spokesperson. That's
face of a athletic label.
Exactly. That's how I make my money.
Yeah.
I don't make my money on the track running at all. That gives me an opportunity to make money. And on the track, I mean, so you win these medals, that's how much you get, $37,000 for an Olympic gold. In our regular season, I mean, if you go to a track meet, I think the most we can make in a track meet, if you win, is $10,000. And like when you look at other sports, right, what they're making by showing up to a game and doing, like you're making $10,000. If you get second place, it's $8,000, third place, $6,000, and so on and so forth. So if you're not on the podium, you leave a track meet in debt, right? Because when you're making this money, you also have to think about you're paying for travel, you're paying your agent, they get a cut, and you're paying your coach, and you're paying whatever other fees are associated with that. So if you go to a track meet, there's a very good chance that you leave owing people money. And so a lot of track and field athletes, we either do it for the experience, it prepares you for the Olympics or World Championships, or you go and you try to stack as many races as you can close to each other so it makes it worth it.
But don't you get more tired?
You do. You get really tired.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're tired, and then you have to go overseas and do it too. So now you're jet lagged as well. So there aren't a lot of racing opportunities in the U.S. for us. Yeah. And so a lot of times athletes they're going overseas and they are tired, but you do what you have to do, right? To
make it work. Make it work. That is the theme of this episode.
I mean, it really is, because that's how you make the Olympic dreams come true. And then, like you said, once you've done that, you have an opportunity to make money. So that's where I am now. I have two jobs. Yeah. Right? I have two jobs now.
So we've talked a little bit about your wins. I want to take a quick moment to talk about your L's. Mm-hmm. What do you think in this process of racing, competing, all this stuff, like what has been the biggest money mistake that you have made in your career?
I would say it's really, I actually don't spend that much money, and my accountant was joking with me the other day that I don't spend enough, because we were going through all of my taxes and trying to figure out what I could deduct. Yeah. And he's like, you don't spend enough. But I will say, after Tokyo, there was a brief stint where I feel like I felt victim to lifestyle inflation a little bit. Yeah. Because once you start winning, you're introduced to different people, different types of lifestyles. Yeah. And you just are in this world where it's kind of expected that you're spending more money. Yeah. And in a way, you kind of do have to invest in yourself and spend this money to set yourself up to be in rooms to make more money. And so I was doing all that. And so right after Tokyo, I mean, I bought a new car. What
kind of car?
I bought a Tesla. Which I don't even have it anymore. I don't like the car. I didn't like the car. It was so impulsive. And then, because now I drive Toyota gang.
That's right.
And new house. And I would say the house was probably my biggest financial mistake. I did not realize. Yes, I bought a second house. In Texas, the property taxes are insane. Yeah. And I mean, I don't think buying a home is a mistake. I think buying a home without doing your due diligence and a lot of research is a mistake. And so the taxes that I'm paying on that is absolutely ridiculous and not something I did enough research in before I actually purchased the home. And now I do rent it out to pay my mortgage, but I can't beat those taxes. I thought, oh, like Texas is great. We're moving to a state with no income tax. It'll be great. I'll make so much money, but they get you. So I think for me, it's just I was so young and excited having just made my first Olympic team, and I was getting so much sponsorship money. But
you thought you had it like that.
Exactly. But then it quickly came back to reality and realized, what my life was going to be moving forward.
Yeah. You know what? I think that was very sage wisdom, and I hope everyone listening can learn from something that you regret.
Yeah.
And they don't make that same mistake.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, there's so many younger athletes and just young people who just come into money, right? Just don't do it. Just like take a deep breath, relax, take a beat, and like take your time in making those decisions. And I think for someone like me, like I didn't come from money. I grew up renting. I was so excited to like just have a house and own another house, and just, I don't know, I just liked that ownership idea. But just I rushed into it. Yeah. Just rushed into it. And then buying a home can just be a headache. Yeah. I mean, it is.
You're fixing those toilets at 2 a.m. on your own.
Like you're fixing things on your own. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say. Take a beat, make a plan, make a long-term plan, and then talk to people. Like get as much advice as you can before you start spending money.
Let's pivot a little bit. So we've talked about some of this athletic stuff that you've been doing, but that's like just a side hobby for you, because you are also so incredibly smart, such an academic. You studied neurobiology. Like you really could have picked an easy major. And you said, actually, I would like for it to be as challenging as possible. Can you just break down like how you made that work and why you wanted to study neurobiology?
Yes, actually. So I knew I wanted to study neurobiology when I was in high school. Okay. I have 2 neurodivergent brothers, and just kind of watching how they navigated the world, how the school system worked for them, I wanted to do research, and I wanted to see how we could make the world, I think, just more accommodating. Different learning techniques we could use, and just understanding the mind more. Also, neuro is just such a cool, newer field of study where groundbreaking research is constantly happening, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I knew that going into it, and when the opportunity to go to Harvard came up, I was like, no brainer. I mean, this is a great place to do research.
No brainer,
obviously,
but
right? Look. So I knew it would be great, and I did my official visits, and I had met the team and the girls on the track team, and I knew it was a culture that I wanted to be a part of. They were so great on holding each other accountable and just being really competitive athletes. So I was like, okay, perfect. A great place for me to grow. Boston was just a couple of hours from where I grew up, so made that decision. And when I got to Harvard and started neurobiology, I definitely had my doubts. So like we were saying, there was imposter syndrome. Yeah. I called my mom and I'm like, this neuro thing is probably not going to work out. I'm going to switch to psychology. I was like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And my mom was like, no, we're not paying for a degree that's not neuro. Dead. And I think, my mom was a psych major undergrad. And I think that, just from this mindset of you have to do something where you can, make a living afterwards, right? Yeah. Like something that, and
because you didn't know if you were going to be able to be a track athlete full time.
I had no idea. And I mean, different generations have different lines of thinking and different, backgrounds. So my mom was like, no, you're going to do a degree. Yeah. You're going to get a major that's applicable to the real world. So I said, okay. So I had to stick with it. Didn't really have a choice there. Although my twin brother got to have an art degree. But I won't hold that against my mom.
But I'm not mad about it.
I'm not mad about it. It's fine. I'm not bitter. But yeah, I had to do neuro. So I stuck with neuro. And ultimately, it was really challenging. Like I said before, just managing the neurobiology classes and lab. And then also doing a D1 sport where we, truly trained like a D1 program. Yeah. I mean, it's many hours a day. And then the travel to the meets, and then also working. I worked at the dry cleaners, and I was a poster girl on campus. So I would take all like the ads and posters from different businesses and put them around the dorms and buildings. And then when school was not in session, I worked at the library. So it was definitely a lot to juggle. I learned so much about time management and prioritizing and setting boundaries. And I still made time to do the extracurricular activities that I wanted to do and make friends and join organizations. So I wouldn't say it was, like the hardest thing in the world to juggle, but I just, I prioritized my time, and I learned so many lessons in doing that. And I learned a lot about myself and met a lot of people who helped me. I mean, I had mentors along the way. I think mentorship is so important for that reason. And my college coach, was such a great mentor to me and was very understanding and helpful with my time management. When I told him, hey, I need an off day or this is too much, we made adjustments. So that's really how I dealt with those 4 years.
How do you think your experience would have been different if you were 5 years younger and went to college during the NIL era?
Gosh, I mean, so different. The NIL is crazy.
Yeah.
I could have never imagined that when I was in school. I think on one hand, it would have alleviated a lot of financial stress for me.
Yeah.
Working definitely was challenging, and we would go on track trips sometimes, like to go to meets, and we get, the NCAA gives you an allotted amount of per diem for food. And I remember sometimes it just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I had to ask my friends sometimes, oh, could I borrow $5 so we can afford the salad? Or because I didn't have it. And so that was really stressful. And I do think NIL would have helped alleviate a lot of that for me. But at the same time, I'm not sure if I had the maturity to kind of build my brand and business the way I have now. I'm not sure what I would have done or what my brand would look like if freshman, sophomore year Gabby was already building that. I'm not sure I would have had the tools or just
we
the
all
mindset.
regret freshman and sophomore year, right? I don't want to see those memories when Facebook brings them back up.
I don't want to see what I would have been saying. I'm not sure if the brands that I partner with now, if that would have been a good fit and what would have happened. So there's also that. But on the other side of that coin, I maybe would have leaned into more things like fashion and advocacy because I'd be pushed into that branding and that business world, and maybe I would have leaned into that sooner. Mm-hmm. So that would have been exciting. I mean, ultimately, it did all work out well in the end, but I think it would have alleviated a lot of financial stress for me. But I'm not sure how long term it would have been as beneficial. I have such meaningful partnerships with brands now. That I love working with that have happened so organically, and I love how that's happened, and I'm just not sure that would have been the case, but I don't know. I'm loving seeing how they're doing it now. I'm loving seeing how these college students are kind of handling themselves and partnering with these brands. They do feel very organic, and it looks so great for them. I'm so glad that they're able to kind of alleviate some of that financial stress, but at the same time, Harvard, like I said before, it was also we don't get athletic scholarships.
Right.
So it definitely would have been helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And somehow in between getting your bachelor's degree, going to the Olympics, doing all of this other work, you managed to get a master's degree in public health, and you've been pretty open about your own, health struggles as an athlete. What made you want to get a master's? That's a lot of schooling.
Well, that was plan A, right?
Yeah.
So I think when people see my success as a track athlete now, it's so easy to just forget that was not my plan originally. And even I forget that sometimes. I just was not your typical professional runner. That was not my path. So when I was a junior in college, undergrad, I knew that I wanted to go get my master's. And I knew that I wanted to do public health because along with my neurobiology studies, I also was really into sociology. And I remember a freshman seminar that I took about race disparities in healthcare. And I was just so into it, right? I was so intrigued. I took so many classes on that. And I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to gain just more of a foundation on that. So I knew I needed to get a master's. And my dream was get this master's, do some fellowships, and run a hospital and just be that change. I wanted to be that boss. I wanted to be the CEO of my own hospital. I was doing
That was the dream job.
That was a dream job. At this point, I had kind of drifted away from the research because I needed something a little bit more social, hands-on, even though I loved it, but I just needed to be in front of people.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. And so that was the plan. I was doing internships, and I applied for this master's, got in, moved to Texas. And while I was training, I started working at a clinic. And, the Olympics was kind of a pipe dream. It was okay, I'm going to train for it. But, this is what I'm doing with my life. Yeah. And so that's what I did. I trained and worked on my master's at the same time, and I loved it. And I finished my master's in 2023, so right before we started training for the Paris Olympics. And everything just happened so fast after that. And I made the Paris Olympic team and got the gold medals. And the whole trajectory of my life, like we said before, has just changed significantly. I now have jobs on top of my track job now.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit different. And now I'm kind of having to restructure and kind of re-envision how I see my life going and where I want to go in the healthcare field. I'm definitely still very deeply involved.
But you still want to do it.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still work at the healthcare clinic in Austin and still involved. But right now I've just been so busy juggling these extra jobs just to kind of pay for this running dream that I have, right? So yeah, but I definitely still value that dream and the importance of healthcare.
At that point, when you started your master's, you still hadn't won the 3 gold medals in Paris yet.
Exactly.
How were you planning on financing that master's degree?
So the master's degree at the time, because I actually had my sponsorships. So I still had my sponsorships from New Balance, and New Balance was my first partner.
Yeah.
And I had negotiated in my first contract with them that they would pay for grad school. So
genius.
Lilith, that was I remember being in college, negotiating this contract and asking for that and being told, no, they don't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, just ask them, right?
Yeah.
Like truly just ask them. And New Balance is one of those partnerships where I know their values, our values are very aligned. Yeah. And I genuinely do feel like they would support me and my dreams on and off the track. And it was the easiest yes. I mean, they said yes immediately. There wasn't a negotiation. So I'm so glad that I asked, and I'm so glad that I did not take no for an answer.
Yeah.
When they told me the answer was no, not New Balance, but the other people I was working with at the time. And so that's how I planned to fund grad school. And it's how I did fund grad school.
That's awesome.
It really is awesome.
That is also a very unique negotiation point, though, because I don't think I've heard of many athletes or influencers or anybody being like, hey, can you put like my higher education into this contract? Like, that's genius. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Exactly. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Amazing.
Exactly.
So now you are still kind of seeing this long-term healthcare dream. You want to fund the running dream, but you got to be funding some other stuff in your life. Girlie, let's talk about what you are investing in. Like, what is your financial planning approach for the future? Because like you said, as an athlete, you don't necessarily get 40 years. You are not going to be able to be running like the way you are running at 60.
Yes. So, I mean, I would say first and foremost, just saving and investing early.
Yeah.
Everything that I have, I mean, I probably live off of 10% of my income now, and I put everything else away in stocks, investments, financial advisor, handling all of it. So all of that is just put away. And I remember USA Track and Field did have an onboarding course for us very early. So when you graduate college and your first year pro, USA Track and Field, which is our national governing body nonprofit, they put on these classes for us, and they taught us a lot. And they were like, look, the power of compounding interest and all of that.
Girl.
Invest early, invest now. And I was like, all right, great, doing that. That's part of it. I also think, diversifying my income. So like I said, we don't make a lot of money on the track. And as an athlete, as a track runner, I would just urge people to not rely on the track income as their primary source of income. As much as you can, try to get different streams of income in any way you can, whether that's speaking engagements. A lot of athletes have figured out, influencing and trying to leverage their platform using social media. I think that's really great. A lot of athletes are already doing that. And I mean, if you can do any other type of side hustle, I mean, I do really recommend it. As athletes and as track athletes, we have more of an opportunity to do that than, anyone else. And so I take advantage of that, while we can. And I mean, lastly, what I do is just having a really strong team around me for financial planning, right? I have an accountant who sets me up and knows the sport very well. So I can set my business up and set up my LLC so that I'm paying, as little as I have to. And, not wasting a lot of my money on taxes or expenses and just knowing what I can do. A financial advisor. I urge everyone to get one. We are so young when we get in the sport, and we are so young when we have these opportunities, and we don't have a league that's guiding us. We are really thrown out there by ourselves on our own. And there are a lot of people around us who don't have our best interest. Naturally, it's the name of the game. So a financial advisor that you trust. I have one that knows the sport. So it's fantastic. So yeah, having that team.
How did you find specific like people to be in your financial arsenal who like know track?
I just leveraged my network and
Yeah.
really relied on people that I trusted.
Yeah.
I definitely have made some mistakes along the way, and I have had to reshape my team and the people around me a couple of times. It happens.
Was there like a teachable moment that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, without, being too messy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, I had a team before, that was handling a lot of my contracts and my deals and my partnerships. And it was somebody that I was introduced to, and
Yeah.
I thought I could trust them, but I was young and I thought I could trust anyone because
Yeah,
they
of
were
course.
nice to me.
Yeah.
And I just realized that the contracts that I had and the deals that I had, they were definitely taking more money from me than they should have been.
Yeah.
And I was definitely being taken advantage of and had lost money. Maybe this is actually my biggest financial mistake, but just trusting people who have too much conflict of interest in your life, and you really have to pay attention to your business and the deals that you're signing and the contracts and actually what's going on with your money, how your money's being moved. You need to see every little detail, every line item. And you think it's common sense, but when you're in the game and so many things are moving very quickly and people are telling you this and that, it's very easy to overlook a lot of things.
Yeah.
And when someone's on your team and you trust them, it's easy to say, okay, well, I'll get the money. I'm sure I'll get the money. But no, I would say every time you sign something, every time someone owes you money, you need like a deadline for when you're getting paid, and you need to see how much you're getting paid, how much of a cut they're taking, all of it. I mean, I know Usain Bolt right now is going through something like this, like publicly, where his team took $6 million US dollars of his money under his nose. He had no idea. They were sending him fake documents. I mean, that's a huge bulk of his savings that he thought, people he trusted. But if you're not looking at every line item very diligently and doing the work yourself, you lose a lot of money. So I think I definitely fell victim to that, and I had to move around and find some people that I genuinely did trust. And even if I do trust them, I'm sorry, I'm still doing the work myself too.
Yeah.
Like you might be actually like doing the work and filing things and getting it done, but I see everything. And also, even if no one has malintentions, just people make mistakes, people mess up.
Yeah.
I need to, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to handle our own finances and our money and make sure that we're set up for future success. At the end of the day, future Gabby is only like me, present day Gabby. I am responsible for future Gabby's success. Nobody else. And there's nobody else I can blame if like my finances go sideways.
Yeah.
So that's something that I really did have to learn. And yeah, I found the right people over time. But it's also why mentorship is so important, and reaching out to people who've been through it.
I mean, I want to put everything you just said and put it on a billboard, because I feel like that's the key takeaway. Like, no matter how rich, how successful, how big you've become, no matter how busy your schedule gets, even if you have people who are actually doing the button clicking and the paper shuffling, you better be checking every receipt, making sure you're getting paid. Because like, to your point, the only person that can take care of future Gabby is today Gabby.
Yep, exactly. And people also don't know is in our sport, it is normalized to not receive your payments for like 6-8 months after whatever the job was.
Oh, the net 90, net 120.
Yes.
Why am I doing it this year and getting paid next year?
Exactly. You race in January, you might not see that money again until next January.
Yeah.
You really might not. And it'll just show up in your bank account. There will be no explanation,
no document,
or no notification, nothing. Exactly. So it gets really challenging to track all of these things.
Yeah.
So just being really diligent about it.
Yeah. If you could kind of go back in time and like give past Gabby a little bit of advice to manage her money more responsibly, or maybe even just be like, hey, you should have bought this or instead of that, like, what would you say?
I would say I would urge her to find a mentor sooner and find somebody who has walked the path sooner. I was so young when I started this track journey, and I didn't know anything about the professional world of track, and I didn't even know what questions to be asking, and I didn't know who to ask, or or what people did. I didn't even know how much I was supposed to pay my coach or like pay my agent. I just didn't know any of this stuff. And so I wish I had just seeked out that kind of advice sooner and just understood what's a normal amount of money to be getting. And once you do have that amount of money, like what to do with it.
Yeah.
Like how much did you put away, right? For example, how much, what kind of lifestyle are you living?
Yeah.
And in our sport, it's so normalized not to talk about money.
Yeah.
And it's so normalized not to talk about how much we're making. And all of our contracts are so private. And because we're not on salary, I mean, these are really private marketing deals. So you're not allowed to disclose that information, but it's so private. And so nobody knows what anyone else is making or what they're doing with their money. And I think it's just not beneficial to anyone at the end of the day. So I would say that. I would say find someone who, you know, I have those people now that I really trust and figure out what the plan is. Just make the plan and stick to it.
Yeah. How'd you find your current mentors, and should we give them a shout out?
Yeah, I mean, my coach right now is my biggest mentor.
Yeah.
I mean, she's incredible. When I moved down and met her, I mean, she's been in the game for a while. She knows what she's doing. So shout out to you, Coach Buford Bailey. And just the best mentor ever. She was an Olympian herself. And she taught me to fight for what I'm worth, to know what I'm worth, to figure out how to get the research, get the information from people, and advocate for myself. She really did. I would not be where I am now as an athlete, but definitely financially without her. So definitely shout out to her. I'm so grateful that I made that coaching choice.
Yeah.
And I just knew when I met her. She's another Black woman who's just been in the game and she gets it, right? Track and field, I mean, it could be such a boys' club. It just really can. So having her on my side has been so incredible.
Your coach on and off the track.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So speaking of on and off the track, thank you so much for joining me today. But tell us what's next for Gabby Thomas.
Yes. So definitely still running. Still a journey for me. I am trying to get better each day, just trying to be even more great.
A millisecond faster.
Exactly, even less than that. Longevity is a game, right? Allison
Yeah.
Felix, Sonia Richards-Ross are two of my idols and mentors as well, just watching their careers. And they've been in the game for a while, so I'm hoping to do the same. Off the track, I would say continuing with advocacy work, continuing in healthcare. I love the work that we do at the clinic, at the Volunteer Healthcare Clinic in Austin. And definitely investing in myself and wealth planning. I mean, that's a big part of my life now.
Yeah.
I run a business, I'm a brand, and making sure that I'm on top of that and just building future success for myself financially. But yeah, I'm loving it and I'm still in the game for a while.
That is good news for the rest of us who love to watch. Thank you so much for joining me. Let everyone know where we can find you.
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram, training stuff, Twitter, fun training stuff, hot takes occasionally. And TikTok is when I do a lot of my behind the scenes stuff. But track and field is also kind of on the up and up right now. We have 2 new leagues coming up. Grand Slam Track League is a new league that is in America. I'm really excited about it. So stay tuned for how to watch that on TV. And then Atlas is another one, the first women's only track and field league, highest prize purse in track and field history.
Wow.
So we're really excited about that too. So more on that later on my socials.
Amazing. Everybody, check out Gabby Thomas. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Networth and Chill, part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. If you liked the episode, make sure to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Got a burning financial question that you want covered in a future episode? Write to us via podcast@yourrichbff.com. Follow Networth and Chill Pod on Instagram to stay up to date on all podcast-related news. And you can follow me at YourRichBFF for even more financial know-how. See you next week. Bye!